allegiance in our hearts, shit what us in our balls. The spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest. The cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded. The teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. With the semblance of a blaze, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Cause I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. The world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Imagine, let us imagine a great warrior prince, a standard of virtue. Let's say King David, a man of action, a man of war, the slayer of the great Goliath, a man of conquest, a paragon of virtue, a standard of morality. Yes, King David on the one hand, and then let us imagine on the other hand, a saint, a standard of virtue, a paragon of righteousness, but not a man of war, a man of peace, not a man of conquests and concubines, but a man of chastity. Not a man of this world. Perhaps we could call him a spiritual man. How? The contradiction is obvious, but within our own tradition, within our own social
cultural, religious, and spiritual milieu, we do indeed have these two standards, at least these two. These two are the most starkly differentiated, starkly contrasting, I should say. How do these two come together? Do they come together somewhere? Do they indeed come together, or is it just a question of different ends being pursued? How do the ends being pursued and the virtues required for the pursuit of these ends of King David match with the ends being pursued and the virtues required for the pursuit of the ends of our ascetic saint, a man of renunciation, a man that has taken the vow of poverty, a man of peace? These are indeed the questions that we will be attempting to answer today. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And my name, as usual, is Ike Okiame, and I am your host. Welcome to my channel. Over here, we talk about being better and doing better with a strong emphasis on doing. And what are we doing today? Today, we are introducing. I envision a few more chapters in this particular sojourn of ours. So let's call it the introduction of the master morality and the slave morality. And we're going to answer these questions. We're going to demarcate and disaggregate them. And then we're going to see if they come together. How can they come together? In a previous video, about hierarchies, we talked about the sage hierarchy, the goals being pursued there and the virtues that'll rise you up to the top of the sage, the scholar, the priest hierarchy. And we also talked about the warrior prince, the Caesar, or the King David, as we said, right? The emperors, the conquerors, the rulers. We talked about the ends being pursued there, the virtues required for the attainment of those ends, and that which therefore will help you rise in those hierarchies. And then we left it there. But when we talk about morality, we have a sensation, an instinct that somehow we need to bring the sage and the warrior together. We need to bring King David and the saint together. We need to bring the Old Testament and the New Testament together. Both in our lives and in the institutions and other collective forms that we see out there in the world. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to introduce the idea of master morality and slave morality. The morality aspect of it, putting master in front of it and putting slave in front of it, was something that was introduced by Friedrich Nietzsche. And we are going to try to expose this and answer these questions because they are actually relevant. They are very relevant because, and let me get a one in the chat if this is clear, the juxtaposition which I just gave, which is on the one hand, you have King David, a man of action, a warrior, a man that conquers, brings milk and honey to this very earth. Conquest and concubines, a paragon of virtue and righteousness. But then on the other hand, there is this other virtuous man, which seems to be the opposite. And even within our souls, we do recognize this very tension. Can I get a one in the chat if perhaps I'm not being too obtuse, too abstract, too perhaps esoteric? Don't we see the inherent contradiction and at the same time recognize the need for some kind of a unification? After all, within our own cultural milieu, there is a supposed unification. It is just assumed that you're supposed to bring these two things together somehow. Can they be actually brought together? How are they brought together? How do we understand master morality and slave morality. We will go into them, and then we will see through Maslow's hierarchy of needs how we can perhaps combine these. And this will be a short one, ladies and gentlemen. The heavier the load, the shorter we want to walk with it. That will be the idea here. So what am I saying? I'm saying that this is the implications of what we're saying here are philosophically heavy. There's, lots behind it, but we're keeping it simple. We are keeping it simple, ladies and gentlemen. And if at any point there are any questions as to what we mean, we shall get into it. So in order to make things easy, okay, because over here we keep things simple, measurable, actionable, intuitive. We don't want to get lost in the weeds, okay? We do not want to get lost in the weeds. We're going to go ahead and share some things on the screen. We are going to share some things on the screen, ladies and gentlemen. The need for more likes. That, my friends, is imperative. So, let's go ahead and do this. Shout out to Felicia in the house. Nicer in the house. Hey, how you doing? I think we have Eisen in the house. We have, let's see here. Who else? And what else? What else is going on? How are you guys doing this evening? Over here, it's a nice rainy evening in the Bay Area, Northern California. And feeling a little chill. Young Swift in the house. Young Swift in the house. General Zod General. Shout out to you, Joe Bell. Shout out to each and everyone. It's okay to be happy. It is okay to be happy. Shout out to you. Okay? So we're going to go right ahead and we're going to share a couple of slides here. Okay? We're going to get right into this topic about master morality, slave morality, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Why would anyone even be talking about this crap? I think young Swift knows. Young Swift knows why we talk about things like this. Yes. Sometimes you have to expose that which is right in front of your face. So, for the purposes of this particular conversation, morality is simple, okay? We don't have to complicate things. Morality has to do with values. Values are ends worth pursuing. Virtues are required for the pursuit of these values. Can I please get a 1 in the chat if what is on the screen right now, okay? Morality is about values. Okay, what do you mean values? Well, ends worth pursuing, okay? That end, that particular outcome, that particular path is good. It is worth pursuing. It will be a good outcome, right? And then there are certain virtues that one needs to cultivate, one needs to inculcate in the pursuit of these values. Can I get a 1 in the chat if we basically get this? When we talk about master morality, slave morality, so on and so forth. Well, what are we talking about? We've described already King David and his ends and his virtues. And then we described on the opposite end, a saint. Not a man of war, but a man of peace. Not a man of conquest and concubines, but a man of chastity. Not a man of action, but a man of spirituality. These two standards of virtue exist in our world today, and we are told to combine them, or it is implied that we ought to know how to combine them. It is implied that, the contradiction is not a difficult thing, a difficult knot to untie. So we will go into each of these. And you will get to, first of all, we're going to talk about the reason why we're calling it master morality versus slave morality, a rather provocative set of terms. A rather provocative set of terms. Donnie goes in. Shout out to Michael. Thank you for the $2 super chat, Michael. And greetings, Donnie goes in, RT Band, shout out as you guys come in one and all. We are going to tackle this particular topic. And as I mentioned, this idea of calling it master morality versus slave morality will become very clear. It'll become very clear, and I think it's important. Right now, someone listening to this will say, well, what would you choose, ladies and gentlemen? If I just told you, hey, here's a master morality and there's slave morality, would you not say instinctively and be honest? What are you going to choose? Which one? Are you going to say, I want the slave morality? Is that what you're going to say? Or are you going to say you want the master morality? Now, we know that the goal here is to try to see how these two things can actually exist in such a way whereby we are just told that, there's no contradiction. We got the Old Testament, we got the New Testament, we got all these kinds of different things. We indeed do value these particular ends on opposite ends of the spectrum, and we are not told. No one says anything about it, as a matter of fact. No one points out the contradiction. It's just, it is what it is, right? However, we have a philosophical mindset over here. We do not want to be blind insofar as we can help it. Insofar as we can help it, we do not want to be blind. We want to be clear with our thinking. Felicia. Indeed. Thanks for answering. RT Band says, I haven't heard of the concept of slave versus master morality, but I look forward to learning it. I'll be exposing more and more Friedrich Nietzsche, that guy that, it's one of those things, okay? It's like everybody knows that guy's name, right? Nietzsche. Let me get a one in the chat if you've heard of Friedrich Nietzsche, right? It's one of those things where everybody knows his name, but nobody knows why they know his name. That is a dangerous situation to be in. You are a frog in boiling water when you're in that situation. You are completely surrounded by something. It is so implied in everything that you do. This guy's thoughts and words are taken for granted that you don't even question why he is so popular. Yes. But over here, right? We don't allow such things to pass us by. So let's give the quick kind of historical thing as to what he was trying to point out. He did not invent this particular concept, but he was the one to put this master versus slave thing in a rather poignant that is, in a book called Beyond Good and Evil, a book which I'll be reviewing in pieces coming soon. Because Nietzsche was quite profound in many ways, also quite crazy. That's why you want to know. Who is this guy? So think about the Old Testament and think about the New Testament. We are Westerners by default. And by Westerners, I don't mean what you might think I mean. I mean, we are quite aware of the history or that which has been passed down to us, the intellectual patrimony of the Mediterranean area, Egypt to the Greeks, even the ancient Mesopotamia. You can concretize it by just saying Jerusalem and Athens, right? That is our intellectual patrimony, right? So when I say the Old Testament versus the New Testament, you guys know, generally speaking, what I mean. Some of you might be biblical scholars, but generally speaking, you can get the picture and you know why. And let me get a one in the chat if you already know why master morality is on the Old Testament side and slave morality is on the New Testament side. Do you start to get the inkling already? We already described King David and we described his saint. Now we are putting another little demarcation here, another little pointer, another little arrow, another little signpost, something that we can begin to move step by step towards getting this picture and seeing exactly what we're talking about. Is it not actually the case that the kinds of good, again, let me take a step back, okay? Because a lot of times in these particularly, shall we say, philosophical kind of conversation, but no, it's not really philosophical. Don't get scared. But in these kinds of conversations where one needs to be very particular with the definitions of the words and what one is saying, right? Remember, these are about ends that are being pursued. Values are about ends worth pursuing, and virtues are required for the pursuit of these values. Nothing crazy, okay? Hey, I find money to be good. Okay, you need certain virtues to pursue money, like assuming you're not stealing it, right? Even if you're stealing it, okay, take some kinds of virtues, the bolt cutter type of virtues, or whatever you want to call it. But a certain kind of competence, a certain kind of conscientiousness, okay? Being thrifty, so on and so on and so on. Consistency, hard work, call it the Protestant ethic if you will. But basically what we're talking about is that morality is about values. Values are about ends worth pursuing. Virtues are required for the pursuing of values. Just so that we keep that in our head when we talk about master morality, slave morality, so we don't run off away into particulars, okay? Philosophy is about generalities. So was it not indeed the case that the kinds of good that were defined in the Old Testament were goods about being a master? Do you not remember that God will promise you the land of milk and honey? You will go over there to the Philistines and you will kill them. Every man, every woman, every child. You will take over that land, right? You will indeed get your rewards here. You will be a master here, and now. Not. And was it not indeed the case that the King David that I talked about, the Solomon that I talked about, I didn't talk about him yet, but the Old Testament brings to mind values worth pursuing that were of the master sort. It was always about conquest, and I will make you a father of nations. And they were speaking from a position of strength. Is it not also the case that in the New Testament, who was the ruler? Who was the ruler in the New Testament? Let me get an answer in the chat. That way, we're all going along in our own pace, right? Who was the ruler over the Jews in the New Testament? The New Testament, not the Old. In the Old, vast expanse of time, a lot of, either the pharaohs or the this or the that or the other. It was the Romans, right? The Romans were in control. The Romans ruled the earth. It was about Caesar, right? Pontius Pilate, right? Is that clear? Do we know that indeed, just like everyone else, this particular group of people were under the boot of the Romans at that time? They were not masters. Yeah. So Herod was like the representative from their people, right? But Caesar, the Romans, ruled at that time. It was not the time when David was going around conquering everybody, fighting this and fighting that, and so on and so forth. So you kind of see where Nietzsche was coming with here, what he was coming with. We can begin to crystallize now why we're using the Old versus New Testament for this here. Okay? And again, don't get carried away. We are crystallizing ideas, and we can see through this particular historical context the difference. When you're out there in the desert conquering, you have a standard of what is good and what is virtuous. When you're under the boot of the Romans, it is a quite different standard. Exactly, misogynoir. Herod was the puppet king, right? Herod is like the guy that you use amongst yourself to kind of, so I'm going to conquer you, okay? I'm going to conquer the young Swift people, okay? Let's say. And I pick a puppet out of the young Swift people, and that's the king, right? But I'm really the boss, right? So Caesar, the Romans were really the boss. Herod was just, the puppet. That kind of a situation. They were not indeed autonomous the way they were, or the way they strove to be, or the way in which the good, the ends worth pursuing, thanks, Nicer. I'm always misspelling stuff or ignoring certain things. It goes with the territory. I got to change the title, correct the spelling there to master morality versus slave morality. We are already beginning to see the demarcation. So basically, Nietzsche says this. The first thing Nietzsche said about this whole topic was to ask you to notice that thing. Ask you to notice that when they were in charge, when they were the ones doing all the pillaging, okay, the going over to the land of Canaan and taking it over and getting the milk and honey, they had a different kind of tune about what it is to be a good person. And it wasn't all this blessed are the meek, the rich man is not going to get into heaven kind of talk, was it? It wasn't that. It was a different kind of talk. It was, no, King David, the conqueror and the destroyer of the Goliath and the Philistines, and you shall reap your rewards here. That was the talk, right? This is the first thing that Nietzsche was just asking you to notice. That's all. He's asking you to notice that. Like, just look over there. Look at that thing. Look at what's going on over there. And there are deep implications as to human psychology. And on and on and on, and what we define as morality. Once you start to go down this path, okay? So, basically, that is the first step down the line. Friedrich Nietzsche said, hey, look at the Old Testament, look at that morality. Let's call it master morality. Look at the New Testament. There were slaves to the Romans. Let's call that slave morality. It's the kind of morality that has certain other things to say, right? Let's talk about the kinds of things that it says. Master morality is about the external world. Can I get a 1 in the chat if external versus internal strikes you in the intuition and you begin to see the difference here? Okay, we describe King David. He was a man of action. He was a man of conquest. He was going to protect and he was going to provide. Yeah, provide and protect, right? We know that particular duo, don't we? So it's about the external world. The ends being pursued. Remember how we define morality here. Morality is about values. Values are about ends worth pursuing and the virtues required for the attainment or at least the pursuit of those ends. These are about external stuff. And what's going on in the New Testament? The New Testament, slave morality so far, because again, remember, we're going to bring these two things together. That is the hypothesis here, that they come together in a real way. In a real way. There's a natural progression to them. There is a whole relatedness to them. There, you could really spend a lot of time having a lot of fun with how these two things actually come together. Okay? But the external ends versus the Spirit of God in you and God in your heart, and it is not about the law. Because remember, in the Old Testament, it was about the law, the 10 Commandments. You do these things. You follow these rules. Okay? And then Jesus came through and said, no. It's not about following strictly the rules of the Sabbath and following strictly this and that. It's about what's in your... became internal now. Okay? We're starting to see the difference. There is an actual difference in the circumstances surrounding the particular people here, presumably the same people. Once they were in rulership, they had certain things to say. When they were under the boot of the Romans, they had some other things to say. Isn't that right, Judge Dre? Do you notice that difference? Isn't it a curious difference? Even before you go deep into it to start to unearth this and that and the other, and even before you begin to get esoteric about it, is it not a curious difference? And when you're on top, you had certain things to say, but then when you're under the boot of the Romans, you have some other things to say. Our claim here is that these two things are not in contradiction. Okay? We're going to see why. Okay? And again, this is about reality, philosophy. This is about living here on this earth or in heaven or thereabouts or wherever. It is not necessarily about Christianity. It's not about the Old Testament versus New Testament. I got to just repeat certain things like that, which should be obvious to this audience, right? We hover above everything, right? And we partake in every banquet on every table. We do not limit ourselves. We are not provincial, right? In case. In case anyone had it in the back of their mind, like, don't get into any narrow corners. At least not yet. So basically, the external things, the pursuit of certain external ends versus the internal. This is one clear distinction between that master morality versus slave morality. And this is the way Nietzsche, in his provocative way, decided to point out this particular seeming contradiction to us and say, isn't that curious how people are when they're in one position versus when they're in another position? They actually even switch the whole of morality. Because the argument could be this. When they were the Romans, then everything the Romans were doing, let me get a one in the chat if it's clear, right? When they were the Romans, everything what the Romans were doing was good. In other words, when it was the time for King David to go out there and conquer people and rule over the lands, then it was virtuous to be a man of conquest. It was go out there and get the milk and honey. It was go out there and kill the Philistines, every man, woman, and child. Don't leave any livestock alive. This is great. God has blessed me. God is great. This is awesome. And then when they're under the boot of the Romans, now it's horrible. And it's not about the riches on earth. And the rich man cannot get into the kingdom of heaven and turn the other cheek, and the meek shall inherit the earth. It's quite brilliant if you think about it, It totally flipped the script. They totally flipped the script. But as I'm making it clear, right, there's so many layers to this, right? So many layers to this, but we're just staying at the surface here so far. Staying at the surface so that we can see the demarcation, okay? Because we're all quite familiar with this particular storyline. Because this thing manifests itself all through many different ways of individuals and institutions and societies. But it is rather clear to see, hey, look at this one particular group of people and look at this and this. And then look at the different in tones of the morality that they espouse. Look at the difference between a saint, a man of peace and chastity and renunciation of the world versus a King David. And both of these people are paragons of righteousness. How? Well, they do come together. They do come together. But of course, we have to kind of see, and I think that's why I say this is an introduction, okay? Even an hour and a half that we spend on this is just going to be a mere introduction to this idea. Now, what else? Now, this is one is that maybe it's a little bit more subtle, but it's the same way of saying the same thing about external versus internal. Master morality, even if you don't want to dwell on the Old Testament, even if you want to talk about Aristotelian virtue ethics or the way virtue was described in the past, it was more good versus bad. In other words, a good shoe versus a bad shoe. How do you define it? Does it do what a shoe should do? Right? A good eye versus a bad eye. How do you define it? Well, is it good, like a good spoon versus a bad spoon? For example, young Swift, you don't say stuff like an evil spoon, right? The ethics, the morality was defined again in terms of external ends, right? A good man does what a good man should do, right? The kind of circular virtue ethic kind of an argument. But the point here really is that in Old Testament morality, in master morality, or even ancient Greek morality, it was about, okay, I'm not talking about Plato now, for those of you whom are, for the philosophical eggheads over there, I know that Plato did something different. I'm talking about Aristotle, or just general idea of what the good was. The good and the bad had to do with whether you're good or bad. A good pen versus a bad pen. There's no such thing as an evil pen. Okay? However, when you go internal, now this idea of evil came up. You see, the Romans, they're good, right? In terms of this old way of looking at things, they actually conquered. They are effective. They are people of action. They are getting stuff done in the world, but they are evil. Right? You go inside now and you start judging things from the inside. A very different way of looking at things. A revolutionary idea, as a matter of fact, from the Christian point of view, right? Again, a flipping of the script. And guess what, right? Did they not conquer? Did Christianity not conquer the Romans that way and flipped it all around and it became the Holy Roman Catholic Empire, right? A brilliant move there. But we're just trying to see the difference, okay? The particulars of what I'm saying is not really that important. As long as we see the generalities here. Old Testament, master morality, external, good and bad, right? New Testament, slave morality, it's internal now. It's now good versus evil. It's some kind of spirituality now. It's not about what you do. It's not about outcomes. It's not about external things. There's some other dimension that has been introduced. Some other dimension has been introduced. $100%. So, and this is why, amongst many other things, why Friedrich Nietzsche was brilliant, because he pointed you to certain things like this, and he never really quite answered it completely. Well, he answered it if you can follow him, but he did not make everything completely explicit. Now, we talked about King David being on this master morality side, a man of action, a man of strength, a man of effectiveness, all right? You could even juxtapose him with the Romans now in the New Testament. They were men of action, strength, effectiveness. But in the New Testament, the slave morality, no. It is now about the meek, now about sheathing your sword, now about what is in your heart and in your spirit. It is about something else now. And those people who have action and effectiveness, things like, the rich man cannot enter. I know, Jesus Christ needs to be interpreted on many, many, many levels of depth, just like what I'm talking about here has many, many, many levels of depth into it. But we're introducing this idea here, master morality versus slave morality, and we're going to see how it combines. We're going to we're going to sneak in a little thing at the end here that makes it, okay? I did not spell asceticism correctly. I was going to look that up. But basically, the ascetic lifestyle is the lifestyle of renunciation. You give up the worldly goods. You know, think about a priest, a monk, no women, a lifestyle of poverty, right? Those are the kinds of things now that were kind of emphasized. And the law, strictly speaking, was not emphasized anymore. Jesus is like, yeah, I'm going to go with the tax collectors and the prostitutes and this and that. And yeah, it's not about following strictly these particular rules. I did not come to destroy the law. I came to fulfill it, though. Showing you an idea of they do come together. We're not quite said how these two things come together yet. But they do come together. And even Jesus himself was saying, hey, I'm here to fulfill the law. I'm here to bring it together. There is a way these two things come together. They must come together. Right? For what does it profit a man? What indeed does it profit a man to conquer the world and lose his soul, right? Now, because all that idea of soul, you know how it's not, it's another way of talking about the internal versus the external. If you read the Old Testament or any kind of master morality kind of template, I don't know, read the Epic of Gilgamesh or something. Anything like that, anything of that particular nature. There's not going to be a lot of soul talk. Not going to be a lot of this kind of your soul. Again, not a lot of that internal stuff. It's just, well, am I effective? Am I a person of strength? Can I defeat the Philistines? And if I lose to the Philistines, well, then that's because I'm bad and God is punishing me. That kind of a thing, right? It's not a lot of this internal obsession. I say obsession not in a bad way. But we are beginning to see what is going on here. All right? We're beginning to see what's going on here, the demarcation, the difference. I talk about reward on earth, a land of milk and honey. I will make you a father of nations. The promises made to Abraham. Leave your father's house. Go out there. It's about action. Okay? Abraham, you're like 70. You want to talk about a deadbeat? You want to talk about a deadbeat? Abraham was like 70, still living in his father's tent. God was like, bruh, you need to do some stuff, man. You're out there playing video games, eating Cheetos. You need to leave. Get the hell out. It's going to be rough, which was the first thing that happened. All kinds of crappy stuff happened immediately. He went out there. The life of adventure, right? You can even also look at it in all kinds of other heroes' journeys. All other kinds of myths about going out there into the world, slaying the dragon and bringing the gold back. That kind of a thing. Action, action, action. Results, results, results. Reward right here, right here, right here. Not reward in heaven and not things like spiritual wealth, right? Not that kind of stuff. Not the kind of stuff they said when they were slaves. One could say, hey, if you're going to be a slave, you might as well make it be the upper position, right? That's one, particularly shallow way of just looking at the picture. And are we following along here? Is this making sense? Is this at all any interest? Do you see the various multiple kind of implications? So let me get a one in the chat, okay? If this opens up a door, a vista into seeing the landscape here that is being opened to us. The landscape of master morality versus slave morality. Okay, the landscape of external pursuits versus internal good. The landscape of good and bad, just good and bad versus good and evil. The landscape of rewards here on earth versus spirituality. Okay. And I was just saying, hey, one shallow way of looking at it is just to say, hey, if you're going to be a slave, might as well flip the script and be like, hey, you know what? The slaves are really on top. All that Roman stuff, nah, that's not, they're not going to heaven, even though they have it all here now on earth. They are evil. They are rotten from within. They are not, what are they not? They are not self-actualized. So, do we see this very last point in the bottom? From this very last point in the bottom, that's where we start to see how these two things come together. On the left side, we've talked about master morality. We've talked about King David. We've talked about the Old Testament. We've talked about virtue ethics. We've talked about many, many, many ancient types of things. Okay? Whereby it's about external stuff. It's about action, effectiveness, a man, a conqueror, conquest and concubines, milk and honey, reward here on earth. Mastery, in other words, of others. Mastery of the environment and of other people. Conquest of others and the environment. On the other side, though, it's all about mastery of the internal. Excuse me while I take a sip of water. So now we have ended up with master on both sides. We started out with master on one side, master morality, slave morality. Okay? It triggers one. One immediately says, I don't want nothing to do with that slave morality. And we even go further to say, if we took one particular historical context of this particular same group of people, not the same individuals, but and we talked about when they were in control and the kinds of things that they said was good. And then when they were conquered by the Romans and the flipping of the script into something else being good. And then we went through the back and forth and the back and forth and the back and forth. And then now we are here and we're seeing that both involve mastery. Both of these things involve mastery. Jehoram Israel, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the $10 super chat. Much, much, much appreciated. And Aizen Sama, the master of Soul Society. Thank you very much. It is green. Thank you for the super chat, the $5 super chat. And you say supporting the content, bro. I enjoy what you have here. So, both these aisles require mastery, but mastery of a different sort. And the reason why I wanted to keep this short is because I want to introduce this topic. I want to just go in from the perspective of Nietzsche and say, hey, he noticed something, that this book was put together. On the beginning of the book, it said quite different things about the standard of virtue and standard of righteousness. On the end of the book, things got a little spiritualized and internalized and actually completely opposite. But now when we look at it, when we say, well, internal versus external, reward on earth versus reward in heaven, and all these different kinds of things, when we look at it, we see that mastery is involved. Mastery is key to both aspects. So let's now introduce my man Maslow. Okay? Because Maslow is a nice little lens. See that, Young Swift? I'm doing it again. Maslow's hierarchy is a nice little lens, a prism, through which we can view this in order to begin to bring these two parts together. We've already seen, we've stopped at the fork in the road where we say, this master morality really is about mastering of others and mastering of the environment, mastering of the external. The way we defined it, right? The first thing we said about it was that it's about external things. It's about effectiveness and action. It's about reward here on earth. It's about good and bad. It doesn't have anything to do with like that evil thing, that soul thing, that internal thing. And as we trudge along, we walk along the path, we come to a fork in the road where we now see that mastery is involved in both, but one is about mastery of the external environment and one is about mastery of the internal environment. But still, how can we further see how they blend? Okay? We're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It could be said that the lower needs, the physiological needs, right? Food, water, clothing, reproduction, and then moving up here to safety, right? The needs of protection and provision. That in order to get that done, you need master morality. Let me get a one in the chat if you understand what I'm saying. When God told Abraham to get out of his father's tent and go out there to the land which he will show him, when they were saying, hey, you're going to take down Goliath, okay, it takes mastery and skill. You really do have to know how to do that sling, which you've learned by keeping the lions away from your sheep, Mr. David, right? In order to make sure you don't starve to death out there in the desert, in order to establish some kind of safety too, so that people don't come in and kill you and conquer you, you better master your environment and the external world. You better practice that master morality. Even up to the level of the green, okay? But definitely up to the level of family and so on and so forth, because it's still within the bloodline. I will make you a father of nations. I will make you a great tribe. All that kind of stuff. Okay? That is external stuff. That is master morality stuff. That is mastery of the external environment stuff. Mastery of other people stuff. And you cannot have that. Even if you're living in a society that already provides that for you, well, trust me, the society has people, let's say soldiers, right? You get the picture now? Even if you're like, but I'm comfortable out here in Minnesota sipping Hennessy. That's not the point. The point is, in order for you to actually be there, there are people out there doing master morality stuff. There are people out there spying on the Chinese. There are people out there making sure the borders are protected. There are people out there doing King David stuff, whether you are aware of it or not. Believe I see Dr. Thunder, the Honorable Chat Whip in the house, and make sure you guys stop by for our show on the 25th. It's going to be a banger. It is going to be a banger. Yes, and I see a one. Shout out to Judge Dre in the house. Donnie goes in the house. Good man is amused by King David stuff. Just don't kill your general so you can steal his wife. That part, you know, that part is frowned upon, right? Young Swift? That part is kind of frowned upon, you know? You have all the women in the land, but you go on top of your roof, you see some woman bathing, okay? It's your general's wife, and you know. But kind of goes with the territory, though. It kind of goes with the territory of King David stuff. Yes, that's the kind of stuff that happens over there when you are establishing the lower rungs on the hierarchy of needs. Goodman says he's just joking. But yes. Okay. Now, obviously, it should be clear to us. Okay, it should be clear to us that slave morality now. You see how I flipped the script on you guys? Well, I didn't do it. It just is. However, these things need to be unearthed, and this is only an introduction, I should say. And by the way, it's not the case that, as I just mentioned, right? I just made it particularly clear to you that it's not that, I do these things first and then I can ignore the below and then I just go above. No, you sitting there in your comfortable chair right now is because King David stuff is still going on. Without the King David stuff, you cannot move ahead. And it's always present. It is always present. Yes. You have the warrior princes doing what they do. Still, you can never get away from it. Arguably. Until we become a complete society, a world of saints. And I don't even see why that kind of a world would be desirable anyways. It doesn't seem like fun. Does not seem like fun. But anyway, so remember, let's just take a quick step back and then we'll rush right back to this point again and put a capstone on this particular hierarchy of needs, okay? But, right, basically we started out by talking about this master morality versus slave morality thing. We said, hey, imagine a warrior prince, a Caesar, an emperor, okay? A King David, for example, okay? Because we're using this particular Old versus New Testament because it's a great one, because it's a nice little storyline to see how this progression happens, okay? This particular man, a standard of virtue, a paragon of righteousness, is a man of war, a man of action, a man of conquest, a warrior. Flip the script. Imagine a saint, a man of asceticism, a man of renunciation, a man that's taken a vow of poverty, a man of chastity, a man of peace. These two are standards of virtue, of righteousness. And we move further, having defined morality for our particular, having a working definition. We have a working definition, okay, of morality, talking about morality is about values. Values are the ends worth pursuing and the virtues required for the pursuit of those ends. And then we say, hey, there's this book called the Bible that takes these two things and puts them together. Old Testament and New Testament, and puts them together. Master morality, slave morality, puts them together. Okay, Friedrich Nietzsche says, hey, point out, hey, look at this. Check this out. When they were masters, they said some stuff. when they were now slaves underneath the boot of the Romans, they evolved some new overturning of the whole thing. And now things were no longer about the external, about action, about effectiveness, about actually being good vis-a-vis the pursuit of certain particular ends. And now things like evil came about. Things like your internal soul came about. Things about God being in your heart came about. Things about, it's not about riches and conquest came about. Things such as, the meek shall inherit the earth came about. We found it curious and we went deeper and we found out, these two things still have to do with mastery. The fork in the road is mastery of self and then mastery of the environment or mastery of others. Then, boom, Maslow comes through and we say, hey, when you're out there needing to fight the Philistines, needing to establish safety for yourself, needing to gather the water and the food and making sure that your seed can be safe, so on and so forth, you need to master the external environment and master others. Maybe put a few people in some shackles, right? That's kind of how it goes. Even up till today. I keep saying that in case somebody keeps forgetting or keeps thinking that we have escaped this thing. No, you would never escape it. The world is the world. It is what it is. Hey, shorty, what it is? Indeed, indeed, indeed. So, now that we've done a quick recap and we're back to this point, we now see that what we started off calling slave morality is what is in the top of our hierarchy. This is how these two things relate, ladies and gentlemen. But again, this is only the beginning. Because there's so much interpretation. Because always there is the external world, in other words, like in terms of society. And then there's the individual. Because you as an individual, okay, you still have to do each of these steps. And you need to do them concurrently. You need to start, you need to finish, you need to keep them all in mind. It is not a linear path. Okay? And just one little repetition of the last sentence is Maslow's hierarchy of needs is not something where you say, okay, first I got to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. It's like, no. You can already just fly up to the very top, okay, while you're still a broke dusty. Right? You can. What did we talk about here? What was my last stream about? Young Swift, you were here on Tuesday. What was the last stream about? I'll give you the answer. It was about mastery of subjective consciousness. Do you need to be a millionaire in order to do that? Let me get a 1 in the chat if it is clear that what is called self-actualization, which is mastery of self, mastery of subjective consciousness, that inward thing, okay? It's not something that you have to wait for all the other things to happen first before you do the other. And it's not as though when you go up there and do the top one that you can ignore the bottom. That's not how things work. Right? And that's why I have a whole 10 video series now on meditation. But the playlist even contains more on that. Mastery of subjective consciousness. The mastery of yourself. Self-mastery, self-mastery, self-mastery. But meditation is too hard. Yes. More for us then. For those of us who will travel the hard road, we will get the rewards. And no heat, no judgment. Gotta have a little fun. Gotta have a little fun. Don't we? Don't we? So, the very tippy top of the hierarchy of needs this thing about self-actualization, the mastery of yourself, that thing about, morality and this higher ends, these internal things now, the sheathing of your sword, the turning of the other cheek. Let's talk about it a little bit before we end this, okay? Because again, I don't want this to be too long because I just want it to be an introduction. Because there are many, many other things that could be layered through this. Okay? Do you know something else that you can look at this? We're over here in the red pill manosphere type spaces. Right there adjacent to it. Let me give you a quick argument, young Swift, about the particulars of the problem that face the relationships between men and women in modern day society. Women need men for protection and provision. Where is protection and provision on the hierarchy? The low part, right? Right there. They need the men to do some King David stuff. Of course, it was the men. It's King David stuff. It's a man. But these things are now done via the organs of civilization. They are now done in a manner whereby the man or the woman doesn't need. Let me say this again. Okay? And the women in the chat, you don't need to affirm or deny what I'm saying. But the women don't need the men anymore. Not for those things which they were primarily needed for. The bottom of the hierarchy, protection, provision. What then happens? What are the choices now? What happens? Or we see empirically what the consequences are, okay? So even if I didn't give you this theoretical particular lens through which it could be viewed, you already see the disarray. You already see the chaos, right? You cannot eat your cake and have it, okay? When you civilize, when you create space for freedom and equality, push back against nature, and you civilize things, you're not just going to have everything. You're going to have certain consequences. And over here, where we think, right, we see, we try to discern, and we try to be in reality, which is what the red pill is about, right? And we don't deceive ourselves like, oh no, but it's like, no, you don't need men anymore. Not for those lower parts. If you then go up, what do you see? You see things like love. How long does that last? Emotions, that is. How long till that flips on you? You get the picture, Eisen? You see what I'm saying? So, point being, this is just an introduction. Mass morality, slave morality, using Maslow as a lens to see how they can combine. But this stuff goes all kinds of places, right? Okay, you're talking about moral philosophy, you're talking about all kinds of societal and psychological things, and so on and so on and so on. But I just wanted to pause here to just kind of say, hey, just is another one of those little things that you can look at, and you can see that, hey, when those external men out there, the trash man and the soldier and the cop and the border protector, those are not your husbands. You're protected and you're provided for. You don't need a husband in the house for that. Now, the things that you're looking for a man for are either you're going to go down to your base drives, right? And you get what I'm saying there, okay? Either you're just going to go straight for the D, or you're going to try to be like I wanted for the love thing, both of which are problematic. And the problems are what we are facing today. It is a consequence of circumstances writ large. However, when it comes to numbers, not every individual need be blindly led, need be blindly funneled into the paths the particular contours of the particulars of the current day Western civilized democracies. But this is the landscape, and this is the result of the problems. To deny it, well, that's not very red pill of you, is it? Anyways, this is the problem we face. Now, self-actualization, which is something that, this is a mistake that a lot of men make. They say, hey, why don't women just fly up to the land of self-actualization and become saints and partners in the building of this kingdom with me? That's not how it works. The band of brothers, warriors in arms, co-hunters thing, that's a man thing. You need to deal with the realities, right? You need to understand the nature of men. Men, in order to keep them in check, right? In order to keep them in check, in order to make sure that, hey, they don't go killing everybody for the water and the food and so on and so forth. We have all these laws, right? We keep the nature of men in check. Let me get a one in the chat if you understand what I mean by this. What is keeping men's nature in check, right? We keep each other safe from other men, right? We make sure that people are not out there raping and pillaging, so on and so forth. We keep that bound, okay? It is checked. So that when it comes to the lower needs, their lower needs, there is a check. The natural check on the lower needs of women were based on the fact that they needed a man in order to secure some of these things. Now, those lower needs vis-a-vis women is no longer in check. No. And this is why it is rarely understood the nature of female vices, because male vices are more clearly easily understood, because having someone hit you over the head with a stick, that's simple, right? I don't want to be hit over the head with a stick. I can prevent people from hitting me over the head with a stick. I have police to keep people from hitting over with a stick. I have certain laws. I put street lighting to keep people from hitting over the head in the stick. Well, how do you keep people from doing what the female vices are, which are in the realm of emotional, psychological, and social vices, right? Again, you keep both eyes open in this world. Otherwise, you're a fool. If you deny the realities of this world, well, you know, we can see you later somewhere else, but not on this channel, right? We don't do that kind of stuff over here. So, just talking about the different lenses, the different things that this can show us. And again, it's just about reality. Just like the master morality thing, slave morality thing, all that stuff, it's all reality. The King David thing, the this, that, and the other, it's all reality. A philosophical mind does not hesitate to plunge into reality, because we cannot afford to be stupid over here. Ladies and gentlemen, shout out again to Michael for the other $2 super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So, as we continue, because this is not a prescription, we can go further. Again, there's going to be more and more videos on this whole landscape, and then we're going to get to the point where we can even proffer solutions, right? Say, hey, how could we possibly solve this, right? What can we do? Okay, again, vis-a-vis the whole relationship landscape. Because to say, hey, you know, let's blame women, it's like, what? They don't need men. Not for those lower things. Those other higher things are ephemeral. They change. And you're asking perhaps a little too much. But Understanding is the first step. Observation precedes control. Opening your two eyes and looking at the reality is the first step, right? You got to look at the reality. Denial, delusion, deflection, that's for idiots, okay? And we're disgusted by idiots over here. Having said all that, having said all that, how do we bring master, okay? How do we bring King David and the warrior, okay? And the slave together and the saint together, okay? We've already seen that, hey, in practical terms, you do need those lower and then the higher. You do need the mastery of the external and the mastery of the internal in practical terms. That you sitting there in your comfortable, well heated or cooled, regarding, depending on how you roll, dwelling, depend on people still doing King David stuff up till today, up till tomorrow, right? That it is a reality. Then the question is now, how do you master the world without losing yourself? Dr. Thunder, what's the Bible quote that comes to mind when I say, how do you master the world without losing yourself? I'm testing your intuition here, Dr. Thunder. Assuming he's still here. Oh, no, Dr. Thunder is not here. But some of us know. Some of us know the saying, what shall it profit a man to gain the world? Bam, 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 bam. Young Swift, the reigning champion. The reigning champion in the house. He came and saved the day. Dr. Thunder wasn't around, and Young Swift was like, I got this, got the ball, pat, 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 before I could finish the sentence. Yes. What does it profit you to gain the world? In other words, to master the external, to do all that King David stuff, but then you lose your soul. You don't master the internal. That's the connection. That's why they're both important. Oh yeah, Dr. Thunder is here. Young Swift beat you to it, man. Come on. Jesus Christ. Exactly. But so we're beginning to kind of see. And again, this is introductory, okay? This is introductory stuff. This is just, basic. We're not getting all crazy with nothing. We're not looking into the historical records and the checking of this particular book. Oh, boy, over here in the Greek language. And but if you read it in the Latin, and then the Babylonian, bop, 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 bop. We're just looking at things on a very surface level, but they are indeed profound enough for us to draw. Shout out to Women's Red Pill Society. Pounds. Currency. There was you got two. I missed another one. That's £1 over there, £1 over here. Counting my shillings. Thank you very much. Dr. Thunder says I'm driving. Well, be safe. Be safe. Be safe. So this is the connection. That's why I had a weird title called Master Morality, Slave Morality, and Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. I'm like, what? What is this nigga talking about? Well, this is what I'm talking about. Okay? There is the conquest of the world, the establishment of your provisions and your protection, the control of the environment and the mastery of others. It is necessary, always. It never goes away. However, just like I said in my last stream, when I said, hey, we like money over here. We like sales over here. We like business over here. We like being able to close deals over here. We master the hell out of that stuff over here, right? All right, well, I guess Women's Red Pill Society is showing out over here. He's giving us giving us the one at a time, right? $1, no, £1, £2, £3, another one. Well, much appreciated. Snuggles with the $5 Monarch in the house. Okay. The mysterious, ever mysterious Snuggles. I'm on to you, Snuggles. Like I said in my last stream, I said, hey, if you don't master it, because we live the world from the inside out, what was the point of all those deals closed? Again, don't mistake me, because I don't care what anybody else says. Don't look. The external is very important. Go out there and conquer the world. Don't be a dusty. Okay? Obviously, that's what we're all about in this channel. But at the same time, it's like 15 videos on mastery of your subjective consciousness, right? Because as I say in those videos all the time, what will be the point? But both of them are highly emphasized here, aren't they? King Dodongo. Thank you very much. That's $20. $20. I need a dollar is all I need. Hey, I need a dollar is all I need. Hey, I need a dollar is all I need. And if I share with you my story, won't you share your dollar with me? I fucked up that last key there. Or is it note, I should say. Damn, Snuggles hitting again. Bam, like damn. Snuggles cannot be outdone by these newcomers. I do not want to lose my titleship. I do not want to disappoint the honor you have bestowed upon me. Well, thank you very much, Snuggles. You are indeed a worthy $5 super chat monarch over here. The monarchy is strong. The kingdom of Snuggles is strong. Donnie goes in with the $20, man. Thank you very much. Women's Red Pill Society. Women's Red Pill Society got a job. I think Women's Red Pill Society got a job, and is showing out with all the 212 and 5 and 1s and 2s, making it rain, if you will. Thank you, somebody, for employing Women's Red Pill Society. Joking aside, I definitely do appreciate it. I definitely do appreciate it. So again, this is how these things come together. The question is, how do we bring these things together? And it's a question of how do we master the external world and still master ourselves? And it's a paraphrase, okay? But what does it profit a man to gain the world but suffer the loss of his own soul, right? That soul thing, that internal thing, that is the key part. That is the part that is brought up by slave morality. Let me tell you this now. Does it not make sense? Let me get a 1 in the chat. Does it not make sense that for you to come up with slave morality, in other words, that morality about internal mastery, you need some kind of boot on your neck? Let me get a 1 in the chat. Okay. Yes, they came up with that when they had the Romans boots on their neck. But you need some kind of external pressure. You need struggle. You need to face adversity, right? If everything was just given to you, you were the son of King David and you're just over there and it's all lavish, conquest, this, that, and the other, you will never come up with self-mastery. Yes. Aha. You see now, young Swift, because in the beginning, that's why I asked you, which would you choose? And you'd be like, I would go with master morality. But now you see the little flip. I did the okie doke on you, right? Basically showing you that, yes, those two things are necessary. I even showed it through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And now we're intuiting it. We're intuitively seeing that, yes, of course, when you have the Romans boot on your neck, that's when you develop the internal strength. When you have external challenges, that's when you can master yourself. It is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, I believe affluenza, yeah. You know, being a rich brat, right? A rich brat does not have self-mastery. They This is how these two things come together, at least using this particular rubric. This is a philosophical conversation, so room is open for all the counter arguments. You know, there are libraries worth of, perhaps not even counter arguments, but more exposition, both of the exoteric and the esoteric type, you know, to be had all over the place. But this is a general overview here, bringing us to this point, whereby we say, yes, you can master the external environment is very useful. External things, effectiveness, usefulness, conquest, profit here on earth, closing that deal. Right? Now, let's. Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Isn't that the same thing? Right? I just remember that one. Right? That's the same thing we're saying. Just like affluenza. Right? Because it is hard to go in there into your soul and master that if you don't have a boot on your neck. That is the slave morality that you need. You need to be a slave to have one side. Then you need to be a master to have the other side. For those of us whom are on the journey, right? For those of us who cannot help but be on the journey, right? Just to give some more examples which we can rally around, if you will. On that power corrupts, we see this happen with dictators, right? The question is, how can you be an all-powerful dictator? That is the challenge, okay? Be an all-powerful dictator without losing your soul. Jesus Christ said, turn the other cheek. Dr. Thunder, do you turn the other cheek from a position of strength, or do you turn the other cheek from a position of weakness? You see what I'm saying? No. You turn the other cheek when you got that big sword and it is sheathed, and the slap doesn't even mean anything to you. That is the mastery we're talking about. That is how you conquer the world and not lose your soul. You got the big sword because you better have it. You better have done the King David stuff. But then when someone smacks you in your face, you don't just bring out the big sword and go crazy. You're like, you turn the other cheek. This is stuff that you do from the position of strength. This is the top of the pyramid. But again, these things are not in chronological order, or it's not like a step-by-step thing. They all need to happen at once, or it is transtemporal, as some eggheads might say. Exactly, young Swift. Deep down, you know they're not on your level. You come from a position of strength where you're turning the other cheek. Okay? Speak softly, carrying a big stick, that kind of a thing. Not to cheapen the conversation with trite little phrases. But that's the idea. And yes, Dr. Thunder, strength. That is the idea. That's why these two seemingly separate things are together in that one book. But it's not, again, it's not about that book. Because this thing has many, the Buddhists have it too. There's the Buddha and then there's the Bodhisattva. There's just two ways of describing a type of person, because Buddha is a title, okay? The actual guy was a Buddha, you know, he has a name, some Indian name, right? But basically, the Buddha is the guy that ascends, okay, and just leaves the world and has no compassion for humanity. But the idea, the highest goal is you have to ascend, okay? You have to ascend, transcend everything, but then come back down and have compassion for the common people. Even if, you know, somewhere in the back of your mind, you're like, damn, I'm way more higher level than these people. You know, like, wow, I don't have these, like, I've ascended. But then you come down. It's the same story. It's the same thing. What does it profit a man, right? These things are over. We see them over and over and over and everywhere, right? So don't get stuck on the book. But this particular book, and that's why I talk about our intellectual patrimony, Athens and Greece, we know that very well. Okay? In other words, Mediterranean stuff, that whole area from the Egyptians, ancient Mesopotamia, Greek, Phoenicians, this, that, and the other, Romans. What we call Western civilization, because it's not the Chinese and the Indian type stuff, right? So it's more like North Africa, Africa, and the Mediterranean. Crystallized, we say Athens and Greece. So Athens and Jerusalem. These are powerful because we can, and that's why I'm using it, because it can help us see many things, because we have a shared knowledge base in this particular regard. That way we can have philosophical conversations, relatively deep philosophical conversations, by just using these texts. And that's why it's very important. This is a slight aside, but being educated is important. What do I mean by that? I don't mean, I'm a PhD. That's not what I mean. I mean understanding the intellectual patrimony, understanding the milieu within which you exist, the basic books, understanding the Bible, for example, because if you don't understand the Bible, if you think, like I said, Nietzsche, for example, everybody knows the name, but you don't know what it is, that's a problem, because you're in you're in boiling water, but you don't know the water that you're in. Same thing with the Bible, because you need to at least know, that stuff. And as we have demonstrated here through this conversation, that we can use it to have these different kinds of intellectual conversations. So let's go ahead and start wrapping this up. Okay? Let's go ahead and start wrapping this up. Remember the video that I did on the different hierarchies? My main point on that was to say, hey, you guys that come in and start talking about, hey, high value man, what about my, what about my morality? It's not about money and this and that, like all those kind of arguments. I was like, hey, let's separate the hierarchies. There's the sage hierarchy, the sage, noble, the noble sage, the priest, the scholar, right? And then you have the warrior prince. Okay, these are the people who conquer and they rule, right? In other words, King David stuff. Guess what, though? Societies from all through history have always ordered the various systems of values from highest, sorry for the typo, to lowest. Take the caste system, for example, which I used in that video about the hierarchies. It's called Finding Your Hierarchies. It is a direct predecessor. It's an ancestor of this video. This video is a descendant from that one. Okay, that's where I started introducing this whole hierarchy thing slowly, but I was like, gotcha, bitch, right? So I was doing the inception thing. I kind of put it in there. So first of all, let's try to understand. But I kept them separate. I kept all the different hierarchies separate so that we can think clearly, and then you bring it together. You cannot bring together that which you have not already finely sifted. Otherwise, you're not really thinking. That's not thinking. That's more like feeling, and we know where that leads, right? So the Indian caste system, for example, puts the sage, the priest, the scholar, those internal things, they put it on top. Those are the Brahmins, right? Those are the Brahmins. They're on top. Of course, right below that, you got to have the warrior prince, right? You got to have the King David stuff, right? Many societies are ordered in this way. Okay. Below that you have the merchants, and then below that you have the workers and such like that. But these things are well understood. These things are ancient. I used again our particular intellectual patrimony used in Jerusalem and Athens. But thank you, Tavana Perry, for the beautiful $20 super chat. Yes. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Well, I'm happy that you guys get that somebody likes listening to this kind of crap. So as we approach the end here, I'm going to open up the chat. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns? We have about 20 minutes, right? That we can talk about this thing about master morality versus slave morality. We can talk about the various aspects of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We can talk about the fact that these two things need to come together, that you need to master the external world, which is what we call master morality, Old Testament morality, King David stuff, for the purposes of this video. And then you need to do the mastery of subjective consciousness, the other stuff, right? And that these two things are needed on a societal level and on an individual level constantly. Constantly. That there are people out there doing King David stuff right now, even if you're not doing it. Okay? They call the military, perhaps. And that you never quite get past any of these things. But still, that this part is also related to it. For what does it profit a man, right? And that you don't want to become this powerful person whom power corrupts, right? Because we see it happen over and over and over again, right? And even we looked at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and we realized, where do women fit into this? Oh, well, guess what? Modern, Western, civilized democracies, liberal democracies. What happens? Women don't need men for the lower parts, okay? Not for their protection and provision. I need a man to protect and provide. Well, unfortunately, you don't need him. And that's the problem that we're having. We're speaking philosophically, which means there's no emotion tied to this. It's just true. But when you open your eyes to the truth, then you can see possible ways to circumvent the circumstances, right? Rather than bitch and complain about, well, why don't the women do this? It's like, we talk about nature here in these spaces, but you can't fight nature. You cannot wish nature away. This is the natural order of things, the way in which we have come to be, the way in which we have lived the majority of our history. This thing called Western civilized liberal democracies is very new. Hence, you wanna all of a sudden overturn everything and be like, no, the women don't need the men. The things that they may want them for are ephemeral now. It's like love and self-esteem and these kinds of things, but you don't really understand. And then the emotions come into play, or you just go down and be like, I just want Pookie and Ray Ray and I want to just be for the streets. That kind of a thing. That's the situation going on. It can be understood from an objective lens. And then you stop just, as some people may say, circumlocuting, just talking about the same thing over and over again. Why don't they do this? 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 It's like, bruh. Calm down. Come over here where we think, right? And let's think through it. When you see what the situation is, then you stop having circular conversations over and over and over again. And then perhaps you can gain some insights into what can be done. Let me see if I can copy this little thing over here. This little thing being the link. The stinky linky. The stinky linky. And I will type over here, join the stream. Back on stage, back to the story, back to the page, back to the labyrinth, back to the maze, back on board like back in the days. Hands are clapping and raising, ovation and pleasant demonstration, feet are shuffling and shaking, lights are blazing, feeling the pure contagion, and we build a joyful montage that the hands of evil can't sabotage. To my family here and at large, you should learn to live and take charge, for we are driven on the path to make a spark. We never give in, we got a heart to face the dark. We are the living, gathered here from near and far. air, and we will live up so the world can hear our song. Know what I'm saying? Front of the line, front of the space, confronting the time. Front me the word at the front of the shrine, up front with the love, no front on mine. For life is for the living, from the beginning, being true to your bidding. Stand firm and stay willing, and make sure that your light you're never concealing. For there is no way to compare all the peace and love that is truly there with your minor worries and cares. You should learn to live up with flair. Know what I'm saying? Word them up, word them up, word them up. That one is called Live Up. You can get that on iTunes. You can listen to it on Spotify. And so on and so forth. The link is there if you would wish to join. We have a few minutes left for you to share your ideas, ask your questions. Okay. See someone in the chat, but I can't click on them for whatever reason. It says device not connected. Try again. Try again. Try again. Many scenes, many times, many faces, many drives, many lines, many races, many goals, many themes, many interests, from the most subtle down to the simplest. Many men have raised many armies, mutual friends of noble monarchies. In due time the nations will boil out, undue privileges will burn out. We abide with the forces of stillness, the only force that will bring us fulfillment. The people fussing and fighting for payroll, the people living their lives like a fable. Righteous path as straight as an arrow, on that path be your aficionado. Feel it through your bones to your marrow. Know what I'm saying? Whom do we have here? Can you introduce yourself? We have the Earth. Oh, and it disconnected. You're having Wi-Fi issues. You're having struggles. You're having struggles with your Wi-Fi. It's well understood. It's all good over here. It's okay to be happy. Bam. You nailed it right on the head. You nailed it right on the head. Right? We have the middleman. Okay? That logging of the trees and the garbage guy and the warrior princess over there and sniping folks and all the things, okay, of all the different gradations and sorts that men do. But you just, it's a middleman now. Because we have organs of civilization that filter the benefits to you. But this is important to understand. So that men can stop bitching and maybe, and women can, I'll just keep my comments restricted to men. So that men can stop bitching and see it clearly. All right. Let's see who else we have over here. W.
Yeah, what's up? It's Women's Red Pill Society.
Oh, that sounds like I think I know who you are, but I will I appreciate the dollars that you dropped. Oh no, it was pounds, right?
Yeah.
So was that right? Did you get a job? Someone finally hired you and you're over here splurging? What happened?
Yeah, I took some of what you've been saying all this time. Work hard, don't keep stopping, keep immersing yourself in the world out there in the ocean, and some point at some time you're going to catch some fish. So finally I have landed myself a job so I can support the community to the extent that I can.
Well, we appreciate progress, okay? We appreciate progress. We appreciate support on this channel. And we appreciate, again, because this is a philosophical landscape, okay? We take all comers. So what do you have to add to the conversation?
Yeah, so as a woman's red pill society, of course, I can give a woman's perspective. I know I'm not a woman, but
Go right
uh,
ahead.
right. So this is interesting, actually. What you're talking about is because it relates to some projections that each side of the gender usually makes about the other side. So I've heard many times that women say, "Well, why can't guys stop doing X?" I'm talking about like the extreme parts of things that they do without consent, right? And of course,
Okay.
society can control this by creating laws and institutions and teaching them not to. And of course, most don't when you control the system. But
Okay,
if
so
you
hold on a second. Let me.
right,
So you're basically saying that men have a nature, a base nature down there, and when in jungle land, the bottom of the hierarchy of needs, if you will, men have these things that they do, and women maybe why can't they stop doing this stuff? And you're saying, well, we have structures, laws, and so on and so forth that keep men in check, right? So is that what you're saying so far?
right, that's correct.
Okay,
And
go on.
when you allow these structures to be functional, it does work to a large extent. But when you break these structures, what happens is obviously you have elements where men unfortunately do end up behaving in their base nature. This explains why 95% of all prisoners in America and most of the Western countries are men. This isn't an accident. This is
Nope, it's
because
not an accident.
this is because of the difference between their base nature. So, for example, right, uh, you could try to make it zero, but if you have some freedom in any community, you will never get it to zero because some men, and for whatever reasons, will resort back to their master um, element in order to get what they seek. For example, right, when we talk about solutions in a wide world scale, we tend to make it into individualistic arguments. Let me explain what I mean. We
Mm-hmm.
say well, they shouldn't do this, or they shouldn't do that, or if they were blah blah blah, this shouldn't be the case. For example, if the way I see this problem is if we don't sort out these problems of relationships, if too many men become incels or sexually frustrated, it might take us back to the old ways, and this will be dangerous for women.
Good. So, women no longer need men, right? And as a result, okay, now this is there's like 16 steps in between, okay? But we're going to just revert back to the state of nature, right? Because of
Yep,
partly from the
right.
backlash of the certain men, they're not getting their willies wet.
Exactly. It's a sad situation because there's this meme, or I guess this tabulated image, and anyone can check it on Google. It's basically states this: good men create good times. Sorry, strong men create good times. Uh, s- Good times create weak men, and then weak men create bad times. So it seems like we're the section of weak men. And if this continues to go on, unfortunately, we might just resort back to the base nature of men, which is chaos uh, in relation to morality. We're going to resort back to the master morality of men, men being in the morality aspect and not the slave morality.
I told you guys that that this particular thing is an introduction, and this thing interweaves all kinds of aspects. Okay, this topic say, hey, master morality, slave morality, and Maslow's hierarchy, but it is a very nice, shall I say, low resolution prism through which a lot of philosophical, political, and psychological, historical things can be viewed, right? As is being demonstrated to us by the Women's Red Pill Society over here. That basically we're in that cycle of quote unquote the weak men, because the strong men, the master morality men, create the good times. The good times create the weak men, and then the weak men create the bad times, right? We also know that, and you're talking from the woman's perspective, I guess. And if these more men are incels and so on and so forth, and don't understand the don't first of all face the nature of the reality, because I talked about talking around in circles, right? You keep saying the same thing over and over and over and over again, and it's like nature is nature. You're not gonna talk it out. You're not gonna talk it out of being what it is. But Let me go ahead and see what the honorable judge has to say. Yo, hey, how's it going?
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I figured I'd come by and bless the show real quick. I got a couple of minutes between colds. But one of the things,
Do you? Would you mind either? It sounds like you're on, that I'm on speaker. We're on speakerphone or something, right? Either you kind of talk closer or do something.
yeah, say something. Hold on a second. I'll see. Maybe it's his head. What about now?
A lot better, thank you.
Good, okay. There we go. What I found is that anytime you oppress any group, I mean, any group of people, no matter who they are, unfortunately, you risk the uprising of, because this is the problem. A lot of people are morally, they don't want to see people, oppressed or not getting their fair shake. So basically, you're creating a whole group of people who are going to be the people who rise up against you. Unfortunately, like look at the situation, say, with George Floyd. You look at the people say, well, wait a minute, you all live here, the rule's supposed to be the same for all of us. We're not getting our fair shake. The system doesn't work for us. So when the system doesn't work for a select group of people, if that group ever gets too large, you risk an uprising. I mean, if you check the stories in the Bible, that's basically what it is. A group that felt that they weren't, getting their fair shake.
Flip the tables around,
Right.
and as a matter of fact, and perhaps in a more subtle way, and it seems like you dropped off, Judge, there, but this
No, I'm
flipping
here.
of the tape. Okay. Oh, sorry. Oh, it sounds very clear now.
Finish. Go ahead.
Yeah, this flipping of the table was something that I kind of described with this master versus slave thing, where it's like, oh, now the Romans got my boot on, got the boot on my neck, and I flipped the whole notion of morality around, and before you know it, now the Romans are being ruled by Christianity, right? It's a genius move how they did that one. Okay, that was genius. But anyways, 100%, you're kind of saying the same thing. Women's Red Pill Society said there that if you have these we're saying incels, right, and if they continue to feel that they're not getting theirs or whatever it may be, and so on and so forth, there's a lot of instability. There's not enough recognition of the nature of the problem. Again, just nature of it,
Right.
especially given human nature, right? And over here in these parts of YouTube, we're supposed to be comfortable with nature, right? We say that's the nature of the thing. My frustration is that it seems to be a lot of talking around without acknowledging the actual problem, which is
Right.
more dire than people, because people are still in this kind of idea of like, oh, the world is really blue pilled. In other words, like the world, right? Existence, right? Existence is a fairyland. Over here in this small area, okay, relationship area, that's where there's only a problem. So I'm going to fight that area. It's like, no, the whole world is red pill. And if you don't understand that nature red in tooth and claw is what's really happening here, and you don't immediately address it, rather than be preoccupied with your circumlocution and you're talking around and around, it'll come and bite you in the butt.
Yeah, but basically they're allowing a problem to manifest into something much bigger than it is, and by the time they realize, it'll be out of control. And unfortunately, innocent people are going to get caught up in crap because you're not handling a problem and cutting it off before it gets too big.
I see. Women's Red Pill Society.
Well, I guess
Do you see what's written on the screen?
Yeah, I can see it. So if men acknowledged and respected love, there'd be more needed than they are now. This refusal of the need for love, which is the hierarchy, is what is hurting us all. Now this is an interesting statement, because there's truth in it, but the thing also again here is also projection, because this concept of love is based on emotion and not based on the concept that men usually ascribe to love, which is more of the loyalty aspect across time.
let me put that in some terms here. Men fighting together in a foxhole. That's what our nature, that's what love is. Okay? We will die with each other. Okay? Men hunting together, band of brothers type stuff. Right. That's what love is. Okay? It is a different thing than what this romantic or emotion love is. And you cannot, and as a matter of fact, it is, I don't even think that'll be the solution. You know, like you're dragging it to a more unstable place. Because I think that love that men, the one that we do, it's actually more stable. It's more loyal, as a matter of fact.
Right. I think that too with the women is like, unfortunately, they're, and I'm not trying to come down, but women are easily manipulated. Unfortunately, you know, that's what leads them down the road to a lot of decisions that they've made. And they don't realize that, like, if they might have a guy who loves them, but if they don't feel that they're getting this storybook or textbook, whatever they feel in their mind, where the guy was going out here and say he's working his butt off, this, that, and the other, and he's just an average dude. But they figure, well, if he loves me, he would do better, or he would do more. You understand what I'm saying? It's always a more. Kind of like, you know, remember in Matrix when Smith was like, more, and just more people just started coming out? That's basically more. I mean, like, and they like, because I mean, you see it every day. I mean, like, you see women with men who you can say, man, this dude is 10 times better than me. And men will admit that. Hey, man, this dude 10 times better than me. And he couldn't keep this. And this woman still feel like she ain't happy. You know what I mean? He's giving her a life that most people would dream to have.
So let me come at it from the other perspective now, right?
Go ahead.
What I described as that band of brothers thing is what we men are thinking, right? We're like, we have this thing, we're going blah blah blah, but that's not what the women is thinking, and that's not what she's calling love.
Right.
Given the fact that we acknowledge truth here, we also need to acknowledge that, right? I
totally agree with that. What we consider love and unfortunately what they consider love are two different aspects. Unfortunately, what I'll say is this, and not to try to seem centered, but our version is more important than theirs is. Because our version leads to your survival.
Yeah, our version of love is on that. This king gets the King David shit done. But anyways, women's, and then we go to Sebastian.
Right. So I would like to give a perspective here. Now, obviously, one of them is more immediate. You could say men's version of love is more viscerally necessary in order to have a survival of the civilization. However, the way women love is more sacrificial because they're willing to set aside their own needs and desires for the child, and it also enhances the experience. And that is the perfect complementary aspect of feminine and masculine energy. The feminine is there to enhance the experience, make life worth living. It's the existential aspect of reality that allows us to want to build.
And by existential again, because I know right. You're a PhD. You mean that poetic, romantic aspect, that part where it's all about it's very much involved with the self and the living from within and the will, and you're looking out into the cloud and that thing. In other words, experience, right? You're saying that's what women are more about, and that part is important, right? We need to know that it is very different though from what the man is about. Go ahead.
Right, but each of them have a place. For example, you stated accurately that the hierarchy is not linear, meaning actually women also occupy higher aspects of that hierarchy in relation to, let's say, love, for example, right? Their love is an experience, meaning it's what makes you want to live. If women didn't exist, we would still be living in caves or in the Sahara of Africa. We wouldn't have felt the need to things.
You just alpha your way through it. Yes, 100%.
So I would say it's equally important for both sides to accept the complementary aspect of everything. It's when you allow one side to gain too much power and then it causes discourse, then the society and the fabric starts to break down. But I think, as you said accurately, it's that it's the inability for us as a society to accept truth in nature and accept nature, but still work and seek to create the best outcome from the understanding of nature. Not to just say, okay, I either reject nature or I simply accept nature, but don't try to tame nature.
100%. So it's not a, oh, well, I have this way of loving, this way of loyalty, again, as Tivana Perry said, where it's like our love is more it's like thinking than feeling, right? And then you just say, well, everything else is crap, therefore, right? You're saying no. Well, the way a lot of things that we would consider good today and are higher up in that hierarchy as well, that pull the civilization, the entirety of human life forward, are on that experiential side. We're spurred on by that experiential side. The impetus of getting to these, pursuing those particular ends, were from that experiential side, right?
Right.
So it's a mistake again to be like, oh, I'm going to ignore. So again, obviously the issue is how many people have we, a lot of people are not even going to be able to, anyways, let me not go there yet, but let's get Sebastian to chime in and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I jumped on the stream specifically with this mention of love and of the needs for a man. And to be honest, I really feel that love has polluted the natural coming of a man. I feel that this emotion deviates us into the wrong path, and I feel like the word love is not quintessential to the growth of a man as much as guidance, respect, and other forms of nurturing a man, whether that be other methods of growth through the guidance of a father and the tenderness of a mother, but not specifically the word of love, because I feel in my generation, growing up with Walt Disney and other brainwashing tools that I've experienced from mainstream media, that love has kind of clouded our judgment, specifically for the fact that we are rational and logical beings. And I feel that love has weakened even our advancements in science, engineering, and other aspects, because we consider more of an impact on how that relates to someone's emotions or well-beings, rather than evolving. Because when you evolve, whether that be career, industry, or as a civilization, you need to have a survivalist instinct and understand elements of natural selection to be better. And I feel that we need to discuss this aspect of our lives as men and understand that we don't live, it's not natural for us to live by love. This is something that has been fabricated by the womanist movement and more womanist ideology. I really, as I age, I really don't believe this to be a detriment to a man's life. Love.
I 100% see what you're saying, and just as Dr. Matt said, there is an assumption that, okay, we should be the same. It's rather weird. If you want men to do King David stuff, okay, and the problem of you not seeing the men who are doing it or not understanding that civilization is upheld by that stuff. If you want men to be men and to do men stuff, then you need to understand that they're different. And love does not work in the foxhole. It's more of that loyalty, that band of brothers, that thing, that us going out there and hunt. It's called stoicism. Okay, to contrast it with what Women's Red Pill Society said. He said existentialism is the female side, stoicism is the men's side. Men and women are not the same. If you want us to do our roles and be what we are, men should not be saying, "Oh, women, you need to give up on this. You needing us for these lower things and give up on this motion and become stoic with us." And at the same time, women cannot be saying, "Men, stop being stoic," because you're gonna end up with a bunch of bitch ass niggas. Anyways, Women's Red People Society, or Judge Dre, you have anything to add?
Well, yeah, I can see what they mean by that. I will admit that love is needed, I'll say like that, but men, we don't value that as much as they do. And I think that what has really happened is we've bent too much their direction to where even they're not even happy with us now. That's the reason why, you're looking for, like you said, it's all a fairy tale. And then the problem is, entertain me, you need to do this, that, and the other, to where, unfortunately, with the guys, all the other responsibilities that the guy has is coming to the fact that it's like, wait a minute, dude. You're just putting way too much stress on me. I'm going to have to work 12 hours a day, then come home and work another 6, And after a while, you're like, you know what? It's just better just to be by myself. It's just not worth it. And I mean, like, literally, I think that a lot of people they've been exhausted out of the game. And I think that's more killing it than that, because it's a unrealistic expectation that's expected, and that does not even if you do provide that does not guarantee you success. And minimal. So why would I build something all this up, work 5 years for you to be like, no, I don't like it.
So there's a question on the screen, and I'm going to say why this is not the time to answer that. Mainly because, okay, I said it's an introduction of this whole particular way of looking at the nature of things right now, right? Talk about mass morality, slave morality, blah blah, all this stuff, right? That's number one. And then number two is love is one of the biggest. Okay, words are borders around concepts. Okay, so you have a border called a vessel. It's around concepts, right? So a bigger border than a cup or a bowl. So these are all smaller. Love is as big as the universe when it comes to, so it's like, it's not the time. We don't have enough time left to try to even talk about what that container is. It's way too complicated. Okay, yeah. So we're using our intuition here, and so far we're able to create a demarcation between band of brothers, loyalty, foxhole type stuff that men tend to do, right? And again, it's more King David like. It's more about outcomes. It's more about what we're building. And then there's that other stuff which is more internal. Okay, and even both are complicated as well. I just wanted to put that up there and address it. But I'm gonna ask, since we have reached the end of the stream, I'm gonna ask for closing thoughts, or perhaps since Judge, you were last speaking, if you could just wrap it up, and then we'll go to Sebastian, and then we'll go to Women's Red Pill Society and wrap this up.
Well, I mean, that's really all I had to say. So you can let someone else go.
Excellent. Mr. Sebastian, do you have any closing remarks, additions, and such?
Yeah, I just want to say with Dr. Thunder's quote here, I don't believe that men should operate with words that are unable to be defined, or words that are open-ended to each individual's perspective. And most of those being 4-letter words. That's all I have to say.
Really put a lot of thought in that, buddy. That's a good one. I'll say that.
Anyways, there is a certain kind of honesty here that perhaps a lot of, and again, speaking for myself, I know that perhaps I don't represent all people. I represent a particular extreme on many levels, right? Philosophically, and also in my willingness to kind of engage a certain kind of truth, right? Now, therefore, there's a certain cohort of men whom I would say, they're just lying. In other words, they cannot kind of accept, like, for example, the question is on the screen. When I would say, no, all those songs King David wrote, that's not what he was about. All that's, that was just lying. It was more of some kind of creativity thing, but he was not feeling that love the way you think he was feeling it. Right. He wasn't Keith sweating. No. I know that guy was a savage, right? So, but again, I'd still leave room that there's a cohort, because everything is a distribution, right, of men. Just like, you're going to have more feminine men, just like you're going to have more masculine women, for sure. But we have to speak in generalities and what can be said about the group as a whole. What can be said about the group as a whole is that, especially King David, he was not, yeah. So I believe Women's Red Pill Society, you have the last word. I'm going to drop Judge and Sebastian down. Thanks for, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining the stream. We'll be back again on Saturday. Thank you. Women's Red Pill Society, what you got to say?
To co-sign on what you just said, actually, the Bible defines itself usually, and in this case, it defines the word love, which is obedience to God's commandments. So actually, it's defined it exactly as the whole loyalty aspect, as you've been talking about, which is pretty interesting, actually. Now, I kind of mostly agree with what the brothers were saying from that.
Yeah, but the Bible is patriarchal and misogynistic. But yeah, anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Patriarchal, yes. Misogynistic, no. Patriarchal is just a point of power. Like the government has a head, etc. Things need order in order to be established and be functional. But anyways, to give the a more woman's perspective is that I think that both are needed in very controlled levels. For example, I think Sebastian mentioned that we've perhaps gone the other side of whereby we may even choose people to work because of like representation. Maybe it's racial, maybe it's sexual representation at work, and sometimes it could be at a detriment to the quality of work, like engineering, etc. Although this is true, think of it this way. Is it not better to still improve and enhance the experience of the community, the common man and woman, even if it's a slight detriment of that? Isn't the possibility of decreasing, let's say, depression or suicide more important than losing some perceived detriment in quality? So I would say that it's essential that we respect both sides. We don't try to turn men into women, and we don't try to denigrate women's contributions to society by denigrating their understanding of love.
Oh, yeah. And again, yeah, you said you were co-signing the things I've said, which is basically like, look, there's a dichotomy here. One side tends to do and has done and has evolved to be doing these kinds of things. Why would you expect that their worldview will be the same? I just think that it's kind of a given. It's like if you have the female side of the species in a sexually dimorphic species, right? Over there taking care of babies and giving birth and so on and so forth, right? And then you have the men over here hunting and doing all these other things and for forever. And then now you have this tiny skin on top of the onion, which is we call modern times. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, well, you just flip it out. They're all just like,
yeah,
no, that's very, I don't even know what, I'm not going to, yeah, anyways, go ahead.
In closing remark, I'll just respond to what Sebastian said. Is that he said, I disagree. What you're basically saying is allow two completely different sides to come to conclusion that will never occur. A philosophical loop. Look at our time. I think that actually it's a healthy interaction between both sides. I'll give you a perfect example. If we say the men's type of nature is to close the borders and protect the borders away from the invaders and the excess immigration, while women's nature is to allow the sharing of resources with everyone, enhancing the experience. The thing is, too much of one thing would lead to death. If you completely close the borders, then you won't have the influx of new ideas and which would actually change that community and make it become more exponentially successful. But if you open up the borders too much, you can't control the infrastructure building, which will then destroy the city. The reality is it's a healthy balance, push and pull between both sides. But when it's asymmetrical, lopsided, that's the problem. And you could argue that right now that is the case. But this is an eternal process that needs to exist.
100%, 100%, 100%. So, and you dropped yourself off, and we shall go ahead and close. We shall go ahead and close. This was about a certain interpretation of the state of nature. What is required in order to secure your safety, your food, your clothing, your shelter? The master morality. Okay? The mastery and the control of the external environment, King David stuff, as we've said. And then, on top of that, there is the turning of the other cheek, the sheathing of your sword, the meek, and all that kind of stuff. But that should be done from a position of strength. What does it profit a man gain the whole world and lose his soul? We have seen that how these two things come together is the question about how do you master the external world and at the same time master the internal world. We have seen that it tends to be the case that men are generally preoccupied with mastering the external world. Okay? That's how we snuck in this whole relationship aspect into it. And again, this is a introduction to this landscape, a low resolution map, and we'll go in there and we'll fill in all kinds of things. However, the internal things, as the Red Pill Society has mentioned, vis-a-vis, let's say, existentialism, the experience of life, okay, are also important. However, in reaction to what Sebastian says on the screen, it is a recognition of the landscape and the ends to be pursued that really affords the having of a healthy conversation. Let me repeat that. Misogynoir says, okay, there's two sides. And they need to talk. You rightly say, hey, these are two opposing sides. They're saying something completely opposite. Well, if both sides look at the floor and say, hey, I am right if I just step over here to this particular area where I should be, and you're right if you just step over there to that area where you need to be. In other words, the landscape of ends that need to be pursued, the things that need to be done, the roles that need to be played, right? That's what facilitate, or that's what will facilitate, or what facilitates the having of a productive conversation in this particular regard. Okay? So, thank you very much for the another £1, another 1.3, and 1.03. Yes, and congratulations on your job, Women's Red Pill Society. Congratulations on your job. We like progress over here, and we like to keep things, okay? We like to keep things very open because that's the philosophical mindset, because we don't like circumlocution, talking around of the same thing. In other words, we need to look. And Sebastian Ritchie says, Ike, this would work if the other side wouldn't shift the goalposts in every argument. Oh, yes. We will get to a further conversation as to what needs to be done very different kind of thing as to having conversations. Because I'm not a big having conversations kind of guy. I'm a man of action, as 100%, as you know. Okay, I'm not even an accountant or a CEO type. I'm not a manager type. I'm an entrepreneur. I go and I start shit. I just go start fires. I go get stuff done. I take the hill. Do. The degree to which I talk is to understand and share the landscape of the reality. I look at reality and then I take action. Action. Creative entrepreneur type. That's what I am, right? The conversations and so on and so forth. But yes, this was another good one. I think this was a good introduction to this Maslow's hierarchy of need and the way in which we are using it to view the particular topics today, or the landscape of morality, the landscape of philosophy, the landscape of human psychology, the landscape of the roles of the external versus the internal.
On the shore, relentless in the war, the legions in our hearts, shed waters in our balls, the spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest, the cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand, stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. With the semblance of a blaze, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand, stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Conditions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners. Go. Run, 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 make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters and your sons, we can't forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters and your sons, we can't forget it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. Run for the hills, let the will lead the mind. For living is the thrill with the doubt left behind. Amidst all the wicked, there is beauty to behold. We are fearless and intrepid from the depths of our soul. The hands of the steady glean the rose from the thorn. The sweat of the weary brings us close to the dawn. The motion of the wheel brings the light to the mind. Be aligned, it's divine. Run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling on your daughters and your sons, they come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, come, make we get it. Calling on your daughters and your sons, they come forget it. Run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. Run, run, come, make we get it. Thank you, Vision, for the $5 super chat. Almost missed it. Came back to acknowledge that. Acknowledge that. And for the late super chat, and I see Dr. Matt and the Goldie Joes are having a little tryst in the chat over there. Another unreleased track. Yes, Felicia. For those of you who stay behind, you always get a little bit of the unreleased material where I do the testing of my stuff. Okay? This one is called 1,000, if I can remember it. Confrontation and remuneration, anticipating and laying the foundation. Children are waiting the wisdom of the fathers, fathers pretending to break down the borders. The darkness comes before the day, the womb will never lose its way. As lightning hails the trembling of the thunder, I shall forever be awake to witness the debate. Forevermore my heart is filled with wonder. The Omega and the Alpha, I and I shield I from disaster. I am the then, I am the after, and I am my only master. In the effervescence of space and time, we shall share the sights of 1,000 eyes, and the initiators of hate and crime will make their amends with 1,000 cries. They're building up the wall, they're hoping we will store 1,000 soldiers marching for the settling of the score. So why don't you just give a little space and time? You get it, just that kind of a thing. Dun taram pam para 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 pum. Neat
asking where you can find the songs. Well, you can find the ones that are released on the links I'm about to drop. And you'll be able to find the new ones when I release them after I take my trip, another trip to West Africa coming soon. So that was a Spotify link. I'm going to drop a SoundCloud link. That's a free one. And then there is a Amazon link as well. You can also find us on YouTube. Okay, you can find us on the YouTubes. All right. You can check out the album that is there. Confrontation and remuneration, anticipating and laying the foundation. Children are waiting the wisdom of the fathers, fathers pretending to break down the borders. The lightning comes before the day, the moon will never lose its way. As lightning hails the trembling of the thunder, I shall forever be awake to witness the debate. Forevermore my heart is filled with wonder. Know what I'm saying? Later.